Hey guys, welcome to the Armory. I'm Matt.
And I'm Pat.
Today we have a review on the fabled Glock 19, the ever classic compact model offered by Glock. It's chambered, of course, in 9mm. Has a standard 15-round magazine. Pat, what are some of the specs on this bad boy?
Alright, so this is the compact version. So they have a Glock 17, which is full size, and a 26, which is subcompact. On this one here, it has a overall length of 7.36 inches and a height of 5 inches. So 5 inches from the base of the grip right here, actually at the bottom of the magazine, to the top of the slide, okay, is 5.4 inches. And from the back plate of the slide to the muzzle, 7.36 inches. Now it has a barrel length of 4.02 inches. So it's a 4-inch barreled gun, okay? So I guess it is in the compact realm. You know, a few things. One other spec here actually is important is the line of sight. So the overall length of the gun is a little over 7 inches, but the actual line of sight from rear sight to front post is a hair over 6 inches. So when you compare that with like a full 5-inch, you know, government model 1911 or something, the line of sight actually plays a big part into accuracy and other things here. So as we get into smaller guns and larger guns, we're going to detail out what the actual line of sight is, because the overall length of the gun is one thing, but the actual, you know, meat and potatoes of using the gun is going to be the line of sight. So just like you have between an AR where the sight's all the way at the rear and the front, and you have an AK which is almost at the middle of the receiver, you know, it'd be the same as if you had the rear sight over here. That's a shorter line of sight. Inherently, it's going to be a less accurate pistol. Or not a less accurate pistol, but less accurate shooting the pistol. So we're going to zoom this out a little bit here. We're going to go over a couple more specs about, you know, the weights and everything. Okay, so the next step of the video here, we're going to do a couple more measurements, and then we're going to talk about the gun as far as its practicality, reliability, what it's used for, and that kind of stuff. So we'll go into in-depth about the actual gun itself. So right now we're going to go over a couple more specs as far as, you know, the weight, the different you know, measurements of the gun, just to kind of give you a baseline of how big it is. And throughout the videos here, when we review a gun, we'll do the same measurements. That way there you can start comparing them all together. One thing quick to talk about this, if you're into like IDPA or action shooting, one of the good things about a Glock is the bore axis. And essentially what that is the axis from more or less the web of your hand right here to where, you know, the center line of the barrel, or the barrel height. Now, per Glock's website, it's speccing it out as 1.18 inch. So from, you know, here up to there. So it's one of the guns that has a lower bore axis versus, say, like an HK USP, which it tends to have a higher axis. That helps you a lot in follow-up shots and recoil reduction, because there's less of an angle, I guess, of the recoil forces per the, you know, into the web of your hand. So we'll start here. We already have the overall length, which is 7.36 inches, and the height from the mag plate to the top, which is 5.4 inches. What we're going to do here is let's get a little bit of the width. Now, anyone that knows Glocks, there's a little bit of difference between the width of the frame, the width of the slide, and then the width here at the little, like the thumb rest, the little bump there. So what we have here is just a caliper. We're just going to do a couple more measurements. Anyone who knows Glocks, the frame is slightly skinnier than, I'm sorry, the slide is slightly skinnier than the frame, especially at this little knuckle bump here, thumb rest, I guess. So we're just going to kind of give you a quick estimate here of how thick it is. Okay, so that's about good for the frame. And we got 1.125 inches, okay? And then as far as the slide, it should be slightly less than that. And that's, the website's saying 1.18. and I'm getting just over an inch. So the actual slide of the gun is just over an inch here. So I'm not even sure where 1.18 would be. I don't know why they called it that, but at any rate, so it's just about an inch, between an inch and an inch and a quarter at the like the little grip thumb rest here. So that's how thick the gun is. I don't think really the magazine release sticks out too far. It's about still an inch and a quarter. So those are basic dimensions of the gun. So it's really no wider than an inch and a quarter, which makes it really nice for concealed carry. And 5 inches isn't terribly long for concealed. I'm sorry, the overall length of 7 inches. So, and 5 inches, the grip doesn't stick out too far. So it's really a nice concealed carry piece here. Next, what we want to do here is we want to weigh the gun. A lot of it comes through with the weight as an unloaded gun. What we have here to test it out is actually 115 grain full metal jacket. So we're actually going to load one up to capacity, which is 15 in the mag, 1 in the tube, and do an unloaded and a fully loaded weight, so you know the difference here, because 16 rounds of 9mm does add up quite a bit. So Matt's going to go ahead and throw the unloaded one on the scale first.
21.38.
Okay, so we got 21.38 with no magazine. What do we have with the empty magazine?
23.77.
Okay, so figure unloaded gun with the magazine is 23.7 ounces. So say you call it 24 ounces. Still a pretty light gun. Most of that's the polymer frame. So we have 24 ounces. What we're going to do is we're actually going to compare this with a loaded mag and a spare round here. So we're not going to make the gun hot or anything. We're just going to add the weight in there. So what do we have for with bullets?
30.3 ounces.
So 30.3 ounces. So you're adding quite a bit more as far as the weight with the ammo. So it's 30 ounces total, which is about what Glock spec'd it out as. Now, just for comparison, real quick, we had a Rock Island Armory, the small one. Was that the commander or officer?
Officer.
And unloaded?
Loaded.
So loaded, it was over 40 ounces. So you're saving quite a bit right there. But again, that's a 45. So you got, what was it, 230 grain, I think, was in it?
And there was 8 rounds without the extra.
Right. So it was 8 rounds plus a little bit more here. A couple other quick things about the gun, just so you know, if you're interested in one or you don't really know a lot about Glocks. Contrary to like I believe the Beretta or a 1911 or a lot of custom or aftermarket barrels, the Glock employs what they call a hexagonal barrel, and the rifling is a bit different. And the way that from the chamber throat to the rifling is a little bit different than on a standard rifled gun. So the Glock does recommend that you shoot no lead out of it because of the buildup, and it could create increased chamber pressure and therefore causing either failures or damage of some sort. The next thing we have here is the trigger pull. There's two fan bases, people that don't mind or like the Glock trigger and people that hate the Glock trigger. It is a, I guess, it rotates or it goes off at the top like a double action almost. It's not like a 1911 or any of the other guns that pull straight back, so there is that kind of rotation there. It does have the one of the safeties of the gun built into the trigger. Okay, it has to be depressed in order to pull the trigger. Glock specs out their normal trigger at approximately 5.5 pounds. These here are a little bit different. This one here actually has a 3.5 pound Lone Wolf connector in it, as well as a 6 pound aftermarket trigger spring. And I believe the other Glock has a 3.5 pound connector, an aftermarket trigger spring, and an aftermarket striker spring. So they are striker fired, okay? That's something we'll get into another video about the difference between single action only, hammer fired, striker fired. That'll be a whole another video because there's a lot to cover in that. Other than that, why don't you throw the trigger pull on there, Matt, and see what we're getting. So like I said, the standard Glock is about
5.5.
5.5 around there. These should be down probably around 3.5 to 4. And this one here without the striker spring might be a little bit closer to 4.5. Let me get the ammo out of here. I get about half dozen pulls on it.
Yeah, just to get an average.
A vast virus database has been updated.
Right now it's averaging about 4 pounds.
Okay. That's with the lightweight striker spring. This one here that just has the connector and trigger spring.
It's averaging roughly about 4.5 pounds.
Okay, so right there, with it's actually a 6-pound trigger spring and a 3.5-pound connector. You get about 4.5 pounds total, but it does break a lot cleaner, has less take up and that kind of stuff than a standard Glock trigger. You can do other things to get it a little bit lighter, like you see in the other one there, and then there's custom gunsmiths that get it down to you get it around 2 pounds, 2.5 pounds. So those are kind of all the specs here of the Glock. One thing we have to talk about that is one of the most controversial things about the Glocks, okay, is the safety aspect of it. So much like a 1911 or a Beretta or HK, some HKs, this gun here has no external safety, okay? But it is, as Glock calls it, a safe action pistol. So there's actually built-in safeties into the gun. The first one here, okay, is you cannot pull the trigger back unless you have your finger on it and squeeze it, okay? Second, it will not allow the striker to go forward if the trigger is not fully depressed. Not sure what other safeties are. And it also has a built-in drop safety to it, so it will not go off, and essentially, if the trigger is not pressed. Now that's not a guarantee, but any well-maintained Glock pistol should not go off unless you pull the trigger. That's basically everything with this particular model here.
Alright, I feel like this is a well-rounded pistol. I feel like it's good for carry, just due to the weight of it. It's got the perfect, what I consider carry weight, around 25 ounces or so. I figure is pretty much a perfect carry. Anything more than that and you're going to feel it, carrying the thing all day. Secondly, I feel like it's a great sport shooter, or IDPA, because you can customize the trigger as needed. I mean, you get a 3.5 pound and it's got a great sight radius and everything. So, I mean, you're as accurate as you need to be. And home defense, you got the rail, you can put the lasers on and every other thing that you feel you need to put on. But overall, I mean, I use it in pretty much any application now. It's primarily the IDPA thing because I have a 3.5 pound trigger.